Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody to this council meeting on the 24th. No, it's not on that day. 15th of September 2022. And look, I think we were all deeply saddened to hear of the Queen Elizabeth, Her Majesty's passing on the 8th of September. So I suggest we all stand just for a moment's silence. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome everybody. Welcome to councillors, consultants. We have online, we've got MFE, Shannon. Welcome Shannon. We've got Nick Donnelly. We've also got Councillor Carmen Hope. And is there any other councillors online? No. So moving to apologies. We've got an apology from Councillor Michael Deaker and Councillor Forbes. Apologies to accept. Second by Hillary. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Item number 2, public forum. We have no request for anyone to speak at the public forum. So moving on to item 3, I'll just move that confirmation of the agenda as circulated in the laws. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carries. Item number 4, conflict of interest. Just the standard reminder to if you need to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between your role as an elected representative and any private or other external interests that you may have. Anyone want to raise any issue at this point? If not, moving on to item 5, confirmation of the minutes. Someone like to move? Thank you, Michael Laws. Seconded, Kate. That's the minutes of the 24th, 2022 council meeting. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. The second minutes, the 5.2. Michael Laws, seconded by Kate. It's the 29th of August, 2022 extraordinary council meeting. I'll put any discussion. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. We can do better than that. All those please say aye. Against.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, and this is the draft submission on the Ministry for the Environment's consultation document managing our wetlands and coastal marine area. The paper is provided to report on the Ministry for the Environment's consultation document managing our wetlands and coastal marine area, and recommend a draft submission for council's approval. We've got Warren and Anita with us. There's a number of attachments, some submission from regional sector, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, was there any opening line at all from you, Warren? Pretty straightforward. MFE, they're recommending regional sector, what they've already raised through their submission.
That's together. So our submissions strongly directed by the SIG submission and endorsing its recommendation.
Excellent. Any questions or queries, Kate, and then Hillary?
I have a number of this sort of related, if you can bear with me, Mr. Chairman. The first question is that we've just signed off the minutes and we did a submission 7.3 in the last ones on the NPSFM. Are there any, and so this is a second or third or maybe, I don't know what we're up to, changes submission. How many submissions have we had on these things, do you know?
In total?
No, but more than more than 2.
A number.
Yeah.
I know.
And what I totally get this one, and it makes sense, and it's often these things come out after cases. I think this one has sort of come out of. The question I've got, are there any other issues, and I know we highlighted some in the previous submission, that may come for reconsideration, or any other possible changes that may be in discussions with the MFE on this stuff?
In terms of this particular,
Not on coastal, but just on the NPSFM.
not that I'm aware of. I know that MFE is still working through changes to the NES drinking water after that round of submissions, and they're working proactively with excuse me, the regional sector on that. I'm not aware of any other in this space at this point in time. But this is the ministry being responsive to the regional sector and the feedback they're getting. So if there is another issue that
Yeah.
raises its head, I would imagine they'd respond in the same way.
And so what I just want, I think this is really hard for the staff to implement and the policy analysts to get their head around. I'm just wondering whether, I mean, there's been a few iterations that I know our submission that we put in last time suggested some other changes that may happen or may not. And I'm just wondering I don't know if there's a better way to do this so that it's all done in one tranche rather than iteratively, is possibly what I'm asking. And is there a mechanism, especially as we go into an election where we're not going to have councils for a month and particularly well formed to do submissions, but be able to assist to get that process through quicker? Is there any way we should be setting up or doing delegations to ensure that we can react to submissions or changes that come as quickly as possible?
If something does happen to fall in the next few weeks, then there is that would be useful if that's what you want to do. As I say, I'm not aware of anything there's nothing on our radar.
These tend to be fairly quickly turned around.
Well, this one came out with very short notice. This one, we might have brought it to you sooner, but we just didn't have an opportunity. I understand the NPS HPL is landing this weekend, but that's
Tell me, please, HPL.
highly productive land.
Oh, good, great. That's coming out. Excellent.
That's my unofficial understanding, but that's actually the final version, so not a submission process. I'm just not aware of anything that's out there, but if for safeguard, then it wouldn't be a silly thing to do.
I wonder, Kate, whether at our last council meeting on the 28th of September that we give some sort of direction to the new council around, as you say, if there are further iterations that potentially latching on to the regional sectors, if they had further submissions, or we raise it through that mechanism to collectively respond if they were of a similar mind.
I'll talk a little way, but I'm really happy to move it. I think they've done a fantastic job.
Cool. Thank you. Can you just hold fire and I'll come back to you? A couple of questions. Hillary, then Michael Laws.
Mine perhaps follow on from Kate's. I'm sort of thinking that this process is quite awkward and we just keep seeming to respond to things. And as far as I can see, we don't hear back. Do we hear back?
In a formal sense, as in acknowledging.
Well, we formally sent them a letter or made a submission. Do we get something back saying, yes, we agreed to your submissions 1, 3, 5 and 7, or actually, thank you for your 25 submissions. No, not taking any notice of you.
No, we don't. Through the chair, we don't. We get an acknowledgement of the receipt of the submission, but that's all we get. And then we, as documents land and get finalised, Warren generally goes through and has a look to see how many of our submission points have been picked up or not. But there's no formal process.
And so we then hear back from, if that's what you're doing, do we get something back saying,
No.
yippee, we had 3 that they listened to there? Or?
No, not in any formal way. So I think you raised this last time and you asked for some kind of analysis some kind of analysis of how successful our submissions are. So that's top of mind. We're just working our way through how we might do that. It's not a numbers game though, it's an analysis game, and because sometimes we can ask for something to achieve an outcome that they can deliver the outcome in another way. So we might still say, well, we got the outcome, just took a different path to get there.
Yes, I'm sort of wondering how to partly not waste our time doing things that we don't need to do, and partly to see if in advance we had enough understanding from the council so as that you guys could say, oh, that breaches our strategy, so we know that they're going to want us to do something on that, to somehow
so
streamline that process.
So through the chair, we actually do have that because of the policy direction that you have given us through various documents, and we have you might not remember, but we brought you the process of how we step through when we do and don't submit, and which particular process we use, and we said we'd bring that to the new council as well, just so there's really good clarity. But anything that's new central government direction or a change in central government direction or is inconsistent with our direction, then that automatically comes to you. If it's operational, then it often doesn't. So we do have a structure around when we do and don't submit, and things like this. Obviously, there is council direction, there's direction in the RPS, and there's direction in the NPS. So we do have a process for sorting that out.
Hey, thank you. I think it's jolly good work you're doing. I'm just trying to think, is there any way that we can make it easier for you to respond to whatever?
We're open to any of those ways because they sometimes land with very little notice and they fall to one person. So
Yeah, well, if you come back, if there's anything that would help that we could do, I'm sure everybody would like to do it the most efficient and best way possible, and some feedback about whether we're just dropping things into a black hole would be useful too.
Thank you. Michael Woods.
Sorry, I confession time. I picked up this paper yesterday and opened it and looked, just so confirm for me, because I haven't done background reading on this. There's a submission from all the joint regional, anything else on this,
yes,
and it opposes it. The national standard in its entirety, essentially because of the same High Court case that we went through to do with mixing freshwater with coastal.
no,
Right?
no.
Yeah, that's all right. That's why I was.
Yeah, no, so this, so our freshwater instrument is a separate High Court decision. This is around whether or not the MPS for freshwater did and should apply in the coastal marine area.
That's what I said. Yeah, so I'm just reading here. It says the report notes the recent High Court judgment declaring that the NSF applies to all natural within the SCN states. So that's the High Court decision. It's not ours. Our one's though.
It's not, no, it's Minister of Conservation in Mangawhai Harbour. Yep.
Sorry,
it-
I got- my
yeah,
apologies.
yeah. So the regional sector endorsed the submission, the RMG group, so the managers group endorsed it 2 weeks ago to go to the CE's group to lodge. So the coastal SIG, of which ORC is a part of, has been involved in the submission. The difficulty is with coastal wetlands is what might be called a coastal wetland would actually fall an estuary. And lots of the activities that the NES freshwater prohibits are activities that are otherwise permitted under most regional coastal plans around the country. So there's just been a perverse outcome, and we just, what the regional sector said and the coastal SIG said is we need a more nuanced approach, and actually the NZCPS already manages wetlands in the coast, and there's a tool and a mechanism there. So the MPS freshwater doesn't need to manage them, and the NES freshwater doesn't need to manage them.
So we're not actually submitting on this as individual council. We're doing it collectively as 516.
So this is an ORC submission, but it's endorsing the regional sector submission as well. So
Right, so-
we're just piggybacking on
Yeah.
the regional sector. We had nothing in addition to add to the regional sector. They've done the draft.
We're part of the 16 though, are we?
Yes.
Which sort of begs the question, why have we got our own individual submission if we're part of the 16?
So we had already started working on the submission, and then we got the regional sector submission. So we've just endorsed that.
Okay, so we're
You can choose not to.
It'll be a one paragraph thing to say we endorse our submission.
It's a bit more than one paragraph, but that's essentially what it does.
It's very
Nice
explicit,
flavour.
focused.
Yeah.
On what we're asking.
So which leads to the next one, which is following up on Hillary. Are we sending anybody to orally submit to this, or are we leaving it to the collective group to do?
That opportunity isn't here as far as I'm aware.
Oh, there is no
No.
chance for oral submissions or anything like that.
No, but we have, after the last council meeting, we now have got that in there. If they do want to hear from people, ORC is happy to turn up and to speak to it.
And the final question is, when is the government expected to come back with a response to this and other submissions for us? When are they expected to say, right, this is the final?
I can't answer that, sorry, I'm not sure.
So we're not expecting that this year?
I would expect it would be this year. Yeah, I would expect it to be this year because the regional sector and the wider community will support the change. So I'd expect this one is reasonably uncontroversial.
So you're expecting this to change at a government end then? That would be, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Thank
You, Kate.
Just taking all of that together, I'm just wondering, and I'm asking, it is a question, but it's really for us to consider, is in that last paragraph of the submission on page 43 of 89, whether we say if there's an opportunity, ORC would like to speak to its submission, I think we could also add, understanding this is new legislation and may change, or the demands may change as court cases are decided. We would urge MFE to work through the regional sector group to come to an agreed position on changes, or something like that. I mean, in that way, it sort of collaboratively, we're giving a positive action of a different way that doesn't require us all to submit necessarily. I think, and the reason I'm saying, does that make sense? Would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know if we have the mandate to speak for the regional sector, but I think the point is that ORC would encourage MFE to liaise with the
Regional
regional sector group
And come up with an agreed position
to
at
work
start.
through
I don't
any.
know that you would agree, sorry.
Yeah.
Kate, can you just write down or type out?
Yeah.
What you're suggesting, because I don't sense there's any pushback.
Yeah.
On what you're saying, because it just seems to be a practical, pragmatic sort of approach. So if you're able to do that, and then we'll just cover off the rest of the questions, and it doesn't need to be included in the motion, but just to say that
Amended letter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
along these lines.
Can I propose some words?
You please, I would much
They
prefer
might
that.
go
If you want-
something along the lines of, if further changes to this instrument are identified as being required, ORC would support that work being done through the regional sector group.
Excellent.
That would be.
So you get what I said?
And are you happy to move the motion
Yeah, well,
or not?
yes, I am. I'm happy to move the motion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's noted that Anita's picked up on the additional
Even better, including
Um,
stakeholders.
comments in the letter to the ministry. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Kevin, before I go to a second.
Look, it's probably just a generic, have you got a second? No, I'm
You
going
have a
to
second?
talk to it. Oh, yeah, I'm happy to second it.
Okay,
And then I
speaking to the motion.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Look, very good work, very well explained. The issue I have, and we spent a good chunk of time this morning with our regulatory group, and them explaining how they're refining their processes, they go and reviewing process and getting things better and better. To me, this seems that we're doing a lot of work, and I'm just wondering how we can actually put some influence on the government to say, can we get these processes better? Because if we're, and I point out winter grazing that came down from above and caused all sorts of strife, and then we worked hard and got it fixed. Is there some better way or better mechanism, and how can we get around a table to talk with these people to say, well, you know, can we try a different approach? Because if we're continually sending policies out that we're amending and changing it and that all the time, it just seems to be pretty counterproductive and probably would lose the impact of what we're trying to actually achieve by those policies. So it would be, I'm not sure whether it's got to be at a governance level that we talk directly with the department sending it down, or we do it collectively as officers and governance to say, is there a better way we can do some of these things? But I just that's what I would say, because it seems to create a heck of a lot of stress.
So through the chair, I just make 2 points. One is that MFE are a lot more responsive in the last few years to areas that have been identified as not potentially being quite right, and so we are seeing more changes, and I think it's that's a credit to them. But at my level, and certainly when Pim's involved at the RCEOs, we have MFE engaging regularly. They've got lots of different groups, and they are connecting a lot more across both regional sector and stakeholders on lots of different parts of all of the national legislation and the RM reform. So I think they are trying to do that. That's my perception is we've got a lot more linkages in to MFE in the development stage than what we've had in the past. Doesn't mean that we're always going to get what we want, but we're certainly seeing stuff earlier, I think. So that's I think that's really useful.
Good. And like really, again, if there's anything governments can do to help assist that process and to give strength to it and make it a simple process, not just for us, because it's our communities as well. So that would be good to know. Thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? So just
Sorry, there's his hand up, Nick, and Richard both had hands up.
I don't.
I haven't seen.
Oh, no, we're in debate.
We're in debate.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
That's all right. So just to,
Move that.
so just to confirm, even though in the motion it doesn't say, but just to confirm that what we're supporting is the preferred option that MFEs are promoting, that the regional sector are promoting, and that preferred option is to amend the NES fresh water so that it does not apply to wetlands in the coastal marine area. In other words, it will only apply to inland natural wetlands.
Yes.
That's correct. Okay. Sorry, Kate. Did you want to speak to the motion?
I'll speak to the motion because I do want to make a point that we've added a sentence into the submission. And while it's good that it's the regional sector group, I would be expecting and anticipating in that process that the regional sector group representing councils will also be working with stakeholders to ensure that it makes sense when they are collaborating on that. So I think it gives a way for the issues to come up through the community. And, there's areas in the West Coast, I think, that are deemed huge wetlands that are going to be quite hard to delineate. In fact, actually, quite a few of the things in the submission are equally appropriate to the inland wetlands. They're imposing substantial costs on councils and these things, not necessarily unnecessary, but that substantial costs, and they're really hard to delineate inland wetlands, as we know from the experience of the ORC. So some of those things are there. I think what I want to ensure is that we try and get a process that ensures that we are looking and representing our communities through to get rid of some of those issues. And I just wanted to emphasise that. So thank you to the staff. It's a great submission.
Thank you. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Warren.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move to essentially item 7, which is the resolution to exclude.
I move.
So what we're going to do, we'll adjourn this public session. We will deal with the legal advice in the non-public session. Questions, answers, etc. And then we have the opportunity, if council wishes, to have the balance of the discussion in the public. So that's the plan at this stage. So I will move that the council excludes public from the following part of the proceeding. So we adjourn public section, move into non-public, and so I moved that way, seconded by Hillary, and just noting that we have Simon Anderson from Ross Dowling, Mark A. and Griffin, and Felicity Boyd from Insight. So welcome.
Can't join yet. She, Felicity. I'm here.
Felicity.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Sometimes I do exist in person. I'll just stop the lights going.